Hi everyone, and thanks for following my channel. I've been getting a lot of emails in recently. I'm glad you enjoyed the Michael Jackson stuff that I spoke about, and the Jimi Hendrix mysteries and so forth. And this seems to have stimulated a lot of interest from people in my channel. And you've been asking me about something that's quite topical this week, which is the Madeleine McCann mysteries. What happened to the child Maddie, as they call her? And people have been saying, well, Craig, you know, if you're a medium, can you give us some insight? Can you tell us if Maddie's alive or dead? Can you tell us if you know, you can predict things through your website with things you're predicting about Brexit, and all this seems to be coming true, what you say? Can't you give us an insight into what happened to Maddie? Okay, so I'm gonna give you some ideas about what I think, okay, and I'm going to tell you most of this towards the end of the video, because I feel it's important we establish some of the thinking behind this before I tell you what my final feelings are. So bear with me on this, and please, if you've been enjoying these videos, I mean, do leave your comments below, and I would ask you, if you would, to follow me, because if you follow, you've got a little button down there that you can click to follow, and then you can click that little bell thing, and that means you'll get updates every time I put a new video up. And I put these up usually on a Friday, but they sometimes vary. And then you can follow the comments and you can interact, and I'm always interested to hear what your opinions are about what I have to say, good and bad. And I would also appreciate you know, you adding your comments, because these can become quite interesting videos, become like little mini forums in their own right. So if you've been living in a vacuum for the last few years, or perhaps you live abroad and don't follow the British press much, I'm going to tell you first a little bit about the back history of the story of Maddie McCann. So here's a little bit of background about what happened. And the Maddie McCann, or Madeleine McCann as her full name, she was born in 12th of May in 2003, and she disappeared while on holiday with her parents on the 3rd of May 2007. And she was from her bed, she was missing from her bed in the holiday apartment in a holiday resort called Praia da Luz, in a resort called in the Algarve region of Portugal. And it sparked one of the biggest newspaper avalanches in history. It was one of the most heavily reported missing person cases ever, as big as the Diana stuff, actually. And to this day, we still don't know what happened. Now, Maddie was on holiday when she was coming from the UK. She was with her parents, Kate and Gerry McCann. And she was also with her 2-year-old twin siblings and a group of family friends and their children as well. So it was a happy family break. And, you know, the typical holiday that any of us from the UK might have gone to, a safe resort. And of course, this is why it was so horrifying to everybody, because this could have happened to any of the families that had been to these places. Any of us could empathise with what was happening. And while they were asleep, and they'd fallen asleep at 20:30 apparently, I'm looking at my notes now, in the ground floor apartment, and meanwhile the McCanns and their friends dined in a restaurant 180 feet away, and so they would pop over every now and again to check they were asleep. The parents checked on the children throughout the evening, and then Madeleine's mother discovered that she was missing, and this was around 10 o'clock at night, 2200 hours. So, and then this sparked a panic, you know, and over the following weeks, there was all sorts of press about what's happened to this child, where's she gone, because it was a complete and utter mystery. And this is where the story begins, because so much more happened after this, and there was so much argument then from that point about what went wrong and why can't we find this child. There was accusations about the Portuguese police and whether they had got things right. The crime scene was a complete mess. There was nothing had been sealed off. All the DNA evidence was all over the place. They couldn't tell one way or the other what had happened. And of course also the spotlight fell on the parents as well as being somehow implicated in this. And the whole thing went through all sorts of problems. The Express newspaper was sued, for example. There was the Leviston inquiry into this, and there was all sorts of accusation about British press misconduct and all sorts of arguments that went on from this, quite understandably, because it became such a big story that there was just too much speculation going on. So now here I am going to look at some of the main theories about what happened before I give you what my feelings are about this. Okay, one of the first theories is that Maddie was snatched for a part of a sex trafficking ring. She was pulled from her bed to be taken off and basically sold into sex slavery. Now, there was a strong evidence to support this, because the private investigators at the time considered that Maddie McCann was of a very high value to a pervert, basically, because she was a young little girl. She was so innocent. We all saw her pictures. They could have been targeting that whole complex to find a child suitable, and there was a good side entrance that they could have got in, and could have easily abducted her. Now, at the time, the Telegraph reported that there'd been an unusually high number of assaults on young girls in that area at the time, and the police identified up to 9 sexual assaults and 3 near misses at the time around when Maddie went missing. So there were possibly predators in the area if this had happened. And in one of those cases from 2005, a 10-year-old girl was assaulted in an apartment at the Prada de Luz complex, close to the spot from where Maddie vanished. So very strong suggestions here that this could have been what had actually happened. And the police even released an artist's impression of a person carrying Maddie, a child, right close to where the apartment was, because Maddie McCann's friend, a woman called Jane Tanner, had seen a child being carried, what she took as just being a child being carried that was asleep, but in the exact area at the exact time at 10 o'clock. So this was the first theory about what happened to her. Now, because there were so many unanswered questions around the parents' testimonies, a lot of people theorised that the parents were somehow behind this whole thing, and a theory developed that Maddie was sold by the parents. Now, I don't know if you can buy into that idea that any parents would do that, particularly be able to fake such anguish on screen, but many people believe, and many of the conspiracy theorists say, that Kate and Gerry McCann were somehow involved in the disappearance, and this became a Twitter storm about all this, and so Maddie was sold by her own parents, who organised the entire abduction. Another idea is that the parents drugged the children. They were out enjoying themselves, wanted them to keep asleep. Maddie was probably, I would imagine, quite an active child. And some of the theories say that people think that they drugged her and it went wrong somehow, and that they killed Maddie by accident and then made up the abduction story as a sort of way to cover it up, and then drove Maddie some distance in the hire vehicle they had and hid her body somewhere. Now, that would be quite a major thing to do if you think about it, wouldn't it? You accidentally killed your child and then you go and hide the body of your child. For what reason? Maybe to make sure that your careers stay in place and so forth. There was some suggestions through the analysis of the evidence that this could have happened. There was a book written about it by the disgraced former police investigator from the Portuguese police force. So this theory was one of the main ones that has been mulled over and thought about, and court cases been made about this as well, you know. So it either you've got 2 dreadful criminals here that have killed their own children, or you have two innocent parents who are being completely vilified by by this trial by media again. So anyway, that's the other theory. Another theory is that there was a Portuguese intruder, as it were, on the loose. This is another one of the conspiracy theories that was explored in the Netflix documentary. And police looked into the case of a man who was wanted in connection with the sexual assault of 5 young girls in the area of the Portuguese holiday resorts. So there was someone on the loose, the lone intruder theory this has been called. And this could be another reason, another possible theory to explain what happened to Maddie. Another theory is the couple theory, as they call it. This was explored by the Telegraph newspaper in particular. And it suggested that there was a couple that were looking to abduct a child to bring up as their own. They were basically looking to adopt her. And this was put forward in 2017 in the newspapers. Because there were witnesses at the time who said that there were suspicious looking characters hanging around the resort who could have been spotters who were there to look out for the appropriate time to grab a child. And when they saw the people in the restaurant eating their meal, they grabbed the child, as it were a kidnapping to order. And then we have the enigma theory, and this is the one that says that Maddie McCann never existed in the first place. Okay, this is for me a bit like the Elvis's car on Mars sorts of theories, you know, and it's really wacky theory actually. But anyway, I'm going to add it there. This is one of the ideas that people have, and so a lot of people really believe this. You know, put it in the comments if you do. But some people think she didn't actually exist at all. That this whole story was fake news. You know, that it was made up in order to distract attention from some of the other news stories that were going on and the political things happening at the time. Okay, that's another theory. We really are into the crazy theories now, because there's another one called what was normally called the discovery type of theory, and this is that Madeleine was actually found alive. But she was so distressed by everything that had happened, and everything was such a high profile that they couldn't announce this fact. And in order to protect her and keep her childhood intact, as it were, and so she could be brought up, she would be brought up in secret, and the parents would carry on making a pretense that she was still missing. You know, well, believe that one if you will. And then we come to what we call the tourism theory. Now, this one says that the McCanns were framed by the Portuguese police on the basis that this whole event, this whole thing would destroy this huge industry that was developing in Portugal for family tourism. Who would want to go to Portugal if you felt that your child was going to be abducted, all these terrible things were going to happen? So this was the idea that there was a huge cover-up, and this cover-up was done in order to frame the McCanns, made it seem as if they were guilty, just to protect the tourist trade in Portugal. Well, believe that one if you can. You only need the McCanns would get an Oscar for being the greatest actors in the world, I think, if you just look at the faces of those poor parents when the news was broken. So, you know, these theories, these conspiracy theories, can be very concerning sometimes, can't they? Or damage they might be doing to real people. And finally, I'll end with there's more theories, but I'll end with the final theory, was the idea of this wandering theory, that Maddie actually had woken up sometime during the night, even though most reports seem to suggest that she was absolutely flaked out and carried into her bed at the beginning. But that she had woken up and, you know, walked away and somehow had been involved in an accident. Maybe she drowned somewhere, maybe she fell down a well, maybe she'd been run over, but the question with that one is, why was her body not found when that area was so searched by so many people, for such a long time? So those are the theories. Those are the main theories about what happened to Madeleine McCann. Now, what do I think? What do I conclude as a psychic person about what my feelings are about this? Okay, now here's my insights into this. Firstly, one of the things I talk about a lot in my videos is that thoughts are things, and my my feeling, first of all, my gut feeling about this whole thing is, first and foremost, is that the parents are innocent. And the fact that we've been sending the whole world has been sending to them negative thoughts must be so destructive to the poor souls of those people. So on top of all the problems that have come from the loss of a child, we now have the physical problem of the real world, as it were, putting all the press attack on the person, and on top of that we have all the negative thoughts that surround this that can create what? All it creates is more and more pain. I don't know for certain that Madeleine is in the spirit world, but this is my thoughts about this. Firstly, in order to prove that Madeleine was there in the spirit world, for example, I would need to do a reading for somebody who was very emotionally connected to Madeleine, right? That would have to be somebody that was like the parents, or like somebody that in the family, or somebody very closely connected emotionally with that family, part of that family. And on top of that, it would be important that I didn't even know that I was trying to make a communication with Madeleine. Because, you see, once there's so much information out there, I would be distracted. Any medium would be distracted by what we already know. Our own thoughts would be so tied up in this. This was the problems we had when we were doing the communications with Princess Diana. We had to give information that was completely out of the press, and give those little things like the pear drops information and things that we said about those little things. If you watch the Diana tapes we did when we did the seances to communicate with Diana, we have to give tiny things and little things that could prove that it was them. And similarly, it would be best if it was done and the medium, myself, whoever did it, didn't know who they were communicating with or for. And then if it came through spontaneously, then the information could prove one way or the other if Madeleine is alive or dead. Right. Now, obviously the parents have constant hope that Madeleine is alive, and I do hope she is. But I have to also question whether she would still be here with us, because my gut feeling here is that she's passed. Actually, that's my gut feeling about this, but I can't prove that, you know, and I don't want to dash any hopes if the parents were to say watch this. But there was another little bit of information that came through that I will share with you, and it could be another way of finding out if Madeleine is what's happened to her. Now, I didn't consult this oracle directly myself, but those of you who have read my book Messages from the Universe will understand that I've been very much involved in a secret Indian oracle. And it's secret. That word secret means that it's not for public consumption, as it were, in a lot of respects. The actual, because people ask me, it's called the Nadi oracle. But this, I must say again, is not the Nadi oracles you'll find all over the internet, because the Nadi means to seek, right? It means to seek. You have to find it. You will not find it on the internet. It is not those Nadis. Those Nadis that people put up, even with alleged testimonials from me, they are not the true Nadi. The Nadi has to be found, and only your karma can help you find it. Okay, but those that have read my book will know that in the Nadis that I discovered were some extraordinary things that it said about my life that were completely mind-boggling. And as you know, I confirmed this by going to 2 or 3 different sources. Now, the Nadis, and also another oracle, which is perhaps had more information in it about this, was called the Brighu Samhita. Again, there are Brighu Samhitas out there, alleged to be the Brighu Samhita on the internet, and we're not talking about this. We're talking about those that are the custodians of the Brighu. Now, the Brighu came up with information about Madeleine. And that information, and it wasn't me that consulted this, and I won't reveal the source of who this was either, because I haven't asked them about this, but they've already done what they could. The Brighu said what had happened to Madeleine, and it was saying where she was at the time. Now, that information was then sent to the police. I think they sent it to the Portuguese police, actually, but the information was then passed on to the parents. But obviously so much stuff was coming in, and you know, psychics tend, people who think they're psychics, there's only a few psychics around and mediums around in this world. There's not many of us really, and they're in the thousands, not in the millions as there seems to be. And well-meaning people that are intuitive and so forth were bombarding with the police with all their insights, you know. So I think the police were rejecting a large part of this information. So I think what had happened is the information that was given from India in the Brighu Samhita was not read or not acted upon. And it gave the locations, and interestingly, the person that consulted the oracle and had this information told me that what happened is, it was sad to watch, because the Brighu was giving various information about the location of Madeleine, and they were seeing the it come up in the press, and they were getting lots of clues that the police were close and coming to these various locations that had been mentioned in the Brighu Samhita. And then unfortunately, eventually, the Brighu stopped giving any more information at all. Now, maybe the Brighu gave up on us, or maybe the Brighu just felt that maybe one of the conclusions we thought was maybe Madeleine's dead, that, you know, that there's no more locations to be found, right? And let me just tell you about this oracle. It's very similar to the Nadi. You remember the Nadi has written upon it, when I consulted it, it had my name, my date of birth, it had my names of my parents, the names of my children, it told all the things about what happened in my life, it gave detailed evidence about my life. And then I consulted 3 separate Nadi readers in 3 separate parts of India who were not in contact with each other, knew nothing about me. All they had to go on was my thumbprint, no name, no nothing, no email address. Everything was masked. I did it with absolute in such a way that nobody could trace who was asking this question. I got 3 lots of information at that time. I've now had up to 7 or 9, I think, maybe different ones that I've found, where I found the sources of these various oracles in here in India, all confirming the same information, the same thing. The Brighu is similar to the Nadis, and the Nadis are written on palm leaves that come from 10,000 years ago, written by rishis that could see these times now that we live in, and see the individual destinies of each person in the world. This is probably why people won't believe these things when this information is given, because it is so mind-boggling. The Brighu is of a similar ilk, but it's another oracle which is written thousands of years ago. It's more astrological in its approach, and in it there's like an index, and in that index it has a list of everybody that will consult it at a particular time. So they know who's going to ask the Brighu next. They've already got your horoscope drawn out before you even ask, right? And in one of these was information about, there was the person that I'm talking about that consulted the Brighu had the information within his horoscope that also related to Madeleine McCann. So it's out there, you know. I would love to use the oracle if the McCann family did want to consult it and they saw this video. I would help, and I would do it secretly, and we don't want the press or anybody to know about it, just as if something was to be able to help somehow. Similarly with mediumship, again, it would be very difficult if I actually knew, if it was done blindfold, as it were, blind, you know, so I didn't know who I was giving the reading to, or that even that it was related to that case, and that's important too. So I think us mediums could perhaps give some insight. It's not the thing that will come. Yes, I say so often, mediums cannot just call and summon a spirit. Those that say they can are deluding themselves. It doesn't work like that. We don't spontaneously get messages from Elvis Presley, from John Lennon, from Princess Diana. You have to be with somebody that is connected. It's only when the person that loves that person in the spirit is there and making the connection, then you can give very obscure evidence that only that person would know, things like nicknames when you were a child and things like that, things that's nothing published anywhere about that. And that's how we give proof, and then we know that it's not the mind. And the same way with the Indian oracles, we can't just consult all the oracles out there, because 99.9% of them are corrupt charlatans and scumbags feeding us slops rather than the true truth of spiritual and sustenance and nourishment. So and it can be done. So anyway, so those are my thoughts about this. These are my feelings about it. This is as much as I know so far about this heartbreaking story. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, and please again remember, follow this channel, and you can get updates every week. Every week I produce new videos, so don't forget to click the subscription button and click the little bell thingy at the bottom, and that'll mean that you'll get updates. Okay, thank you for following my channel. Bye for now.
I have discovered a secret oracle in India that has on it the name of my mother, the name of my father, my name, my brother's name, my wife's name, all the details about my life from the moment I was born and right into the future. And it even tells me the time of my death. And to access this oracle, all it needed was my thumbprint. I'm here in India on my first mystic journey. In the UK and USA, Jane and I are known as the most psychic couple on the planet.
I really enjoyed the reading with Craig because he hit some real accuracies about my father and our relationship.
I've been a psychic medium for years. We have both had a fruitful life and seen many mystical things, but my trip to India has certainly opened even my eyes. As psychics, we have both been invited to do many TV shows about the paranormal, but what I'm about to experience in India is absolutely astonishing. So astonishing that even my wife Jane couldn't get her head round it. I have come to India to visit its temples and to do its rituals and change my fate. Everything the Oracle has told me about my life so far is astonishing. What it has to say is so mind-boggling that I feel compelled to make this crazy journey in order to undertake the magical remedies it prescribes. I want to find out if these nadi leaves are a myth or the real thing. And if so, maybe I can uncover their secrets and discover if they can help other people too. On this journey, I meet a holy man who sleeps in a raging fire and is claimed will live for hundreds of years. This Siddhi yogi never eats, lives in a cave, and few people ever get to meet him. I am guided by two astrologers that help me clear my karma and explain to me the rituals that I must undertake. I am stunned by the beautiful landscapes and overwhelmed by the magical temples and mystic places. I love the people and the animals of India. I am visiting places where few Westerners ever go. It's a cultural shock and spiritual awakening. I feel an overwhelming inner transformation. Will I find the guiding light I need? My search takes me thousands of miles across India's breathtaking landscapes, and I see magnificent things. To clear my karma, the Oracle has told me to do charitable work, undertake magical rituals and remedies. This is the adventure of a lifetime. This is my mystic journey.